Hi everyone, this is Rohit from Lifestyle Mastery, and I'm excited to have Anne Ho Chong Dikku, who's the founder of Lago, a YC-backed company, and was earlier working with McKinsey, and she was the VP Growth and the first employee at Quanto, which was a unicorn startup, and has done her master's from ESCP Europe, and a big thanks to Evgenia Plotnikova from Dawn Capital for the introduction. Welcome to the show, Anne.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So and you've been in the European startup ecosystem for close to a decade now. How did you get into this crazy world of startups?
Yeah, so after business school I was interested in like fintech, but in Africa. So weirdly enough, like there was more fintech in Africa than in Europe. In like 2011, was more about like mobile financial services for the end banks. So I went to Africa and I worked on the ground, like launching like mobile financial services. And then I kind of missed my country. So my parents are Vietnamese, but I grew up in France. This is where my life is. So I went back to Paris and tried to like find the same excitement about like launching new projects. I wasn't really successful at finding a project. So I got an offer from McKinsey to do management consulting, and I thought it was a good company to join. There were like a lot of smart people, and I made like amazing friends there. But I really missed the part where you can have like strategy and implementation in like short like feedback loops. And I felt like startups were a good place to go. And actually, it's thanks to a friend who's now like the founder of a startup called Hugging Face, which is quite big right now. He introduced me to a startup studio called eFounders, which launched like different like B2B SaaS. One of them is Font, another is Aircall. So at that time, it was 2012. It was really, really small. Nobody knew about it. Nobody knew about SaaS. There wasn't a lot of startups in France. So I kind of resigned from a very safe job in management consulting, like a dream job for people from business school. I remember the partner of McKinsey who like mentored me, told me like, what are you doing? Where are you going? Are you going to be paid at least? What's this stuff? So it was quite like a mix of, I wanted to be more on the ground, and as always it was a matter of like connecting with the right people, and I really jumped ship into a world that I didn't really know about, like B2B SaaS, and I joined one of the startups from eFounders. So it was called NaveJet. It was acquired by Navegun afterwards. It was just around Series A. So at that time, like Series A were like 3 million euros. I remember the CEO told me, I don't know what you're going to do, but I know I need like someone to help me. Right. So if you're ready to be a sponge and do like whatever project is useful, you can join me. And I think I just like joined and decided I wanted to learn as much as possible in the tech ecosystem. So yeah. And also I thought I could always go back to consulting if I wanted. Yeah. Quite true.
Interesting. And you have worked with Quanto. How's the whole experience about? I was fortunate enough to be a part of a hypergrowth startup. But what you were the first employee, and what were some of the important learnings while growing the company?
Yeah, I think one of the Quanto was my third like B2B SaaS that I joined. So I was fortunate enough to see like different models, different stages, and I've always felt I've spent a lot of time like cleaning data. When you join like a series like A+ company and the data like stack hasn't been like really thought through because it's never a priority, then at some point there's a debt and someone has to clean all this data and to, look at the tracking, look at like how the data modeling is done and that kind of thing. So when I joined Quanto, I feel like I joined pre-product, pre-launch, but the company wasn't incorporated yet. So I thought like, as soon as we have product market fit, I want to do like a clean like data stack, because I never want to spend my nights like cleaning data anymore. So I think like if I hadn't been to like previous startups before, I wouldn't have had these like obsessions. And I think like having like implemented this data stack like at Conto quite early, and I was fortunate enough in my team. So I led the growth team, and at Conto that meant like everything around branding, partnerships, user acquisitions, but also like monthly recurring revenue, like activation, and making sure like the ARPU was high, like completely. That was my main goal. And I was fortunate enough to have engineers on my team who could help with that. So yeah, I think that the importance, like everybody says that, but as soon as you have product market fit, I think you need to think about data. Not before, because it's too soon and it's useless. Right. But as soon as like the PMF is clear, like if you do like self-serve, if you do like consumer or prosumer, I think like data is super important. But the timing is important as well. I see like other entrepreneurs like implementing a data stack when they're like pre-product market fit, and that doesn't really make sense. It's just a waste of time. It's really interesting, but like not useful. And afterwards, it's too late. So yeah, this is one of the things I learned. And about the experience, I think it went really fast. So I stayed 3 years. So it was pre-product, and then we hit like 10 million annual recurring revenue like quite fast, and the team grew really fast. I think it was quite a unique experience as well. I just want to emphasize that because we found like product market fit quite fast. It really seemed long at the time, but it was like a few months. But during these months, like a lot of people said, you're not a banker, it will never work. I already have a bank. There are like all these expensive companies that are doing like stuff better than you. And we were rejected like a lot of time during these months, and we iterated a lot on this. So I also learned like resilience, even if now Conto is quite mainstream, so it's obvious to everyone, but I will never forget how hard we got like rejected by a lot of people at the time. So this is one thing I learned also about early stage.
So super interesting. And you went on to build Lago, and you were accepted into Y Combinator last year. What led you to build Lago? You've been into a couple of startups. What give you the strength to build something from scratch once again?
Yeah, so after Conto, actually, I wanted to go to Asia and to Vietnam, which is the countries of, my parents come from Vietnam, but I've never lived there. And there's a lot of stuff going on in tech there, especially in fintech. So it was like a personal project. So my husband and I, we flew to Asia. It was like December 2019.
Okay.
There was my husband told me that there's a little flu in Asia, something like this. I was like, okay, whatever. Okay. And actually it became like COVID, and we had to go back to France. So I was like a bit lost in translation, to be totally honest, and I think everybody was at that time. And I started like freelancing. I got some offers from other startups to join them as an employee, also from VCs. But once again, I think it's a matter of relationship. And like my now co-founder, called Rafi at Lago, I met him at Conto as well, and we had a beer together, and he was like, what are you doing now? And I was like, really, I don't know, I'm freelancing, but no, it's great because I have a lot of free time, but I know I need to be challenged at some point because it's great. I mean, like freelancing is super great because like you can maximize your like freedom. Right. But I think I need a bit of intensity sometimes, and I need a bit of constraints so that I can enjoy being on vacation. And I guess everybody who has been on a gap year really like kind of knows it at some point. So I was in this phase, and Rafi also wanted to build an early stage company. So we decided to start building together, and like quite quickly we had like some people we knew who were like talented, and we also wanted to build together. So it started with the team. We knew we liked B2B SaaS. we were not really sure about like what we wanted to do, and we knew we wanted to apply to YC for some reasons. One of them is, I think when you do B2B SaaS, like the market is more like US centric, and there are like many ways, but one of the most straightforward way to access the US market is to to apply to YC. So we had a team, we knew we wanted to do B2B SaaS, and we knew we wanted to apply to YC. So like the ideation process was, what were the problems we met at Conto while we were like building and growing Conto. And the first thing, as we're quite obsessed with data, the first thing we thought about was to be the data tool for growth teams. So this was the idea we applied to YC with. And right now, like Lago is a different company right now because we pivoted, and I can talk about it. Right now, we are like the open source billing API for B2B SaaS, more like an open source alternative to Chargebee. But yeah, at the time, it was like a different like ideation process and a different idea to follow. Yeah.
Interesting. And before the call, I did mention about Sifted, and you written an article about startups which are trying to pivot in Europe, and it's more acceptable in the US. So what are your thoughts on pivoting a startup, especially since you just come out of Y Combinator? What made you think about how to pivot, and when is the right time for a startup to look at pivoting to a different sort of a product idea?
Yeah, I think pivoting is super hard because, and I think entrepreneurship is hard in general because you never know if you take the right decision. So if you pivot too late, then you might not have enough runway, and if you pivot too early, maybe you could have continued, and maybe like if you had continued, I don't know, 4 months, maybe something would have come up. So at some point, it needs to rely on a bit of intuition. So data is great, but at an early stage, it's a lot of you don't have a lot of volume of data, and you can have feedbacks, but the way you interpret feedback can be like really different.
Right.
So it's a bit the messy part. And yeah, I know you're going to ask about my favorite book, but one of the book I found really like relevant for this phase is like The Messy Middle from Belsky, which really describes this this period where like you have a bit of data, but not enough. I mean, you don't do statistics with like thousands of interviews, which are like different each time. So I think what happened is we applied to YC, got in during the batch. The batch is like last 3 months. So we shipped the product, started monetizing. And what we realized was that the persona we were building for, which is like very technical growth teams where they're like data engineers embedded in the growth teams. This persona was a small market. Usually when a company grows, all the data engineering goes into the data team, which is like attached to the tech team. And these individuals, what they like is more like dev tools, and we're building like a no-code tool. So being no-code wasn't really relevant or different, wasn't really like a good thing, or wasn't like differentiating enough to like break through into this market. So we thought that either we'll like become a dev tool for these data engineers, or we do something else. So I think we lost conviction, but it was a really difficult decision because during office hour at YC, like one of the partners said, "Wow, you managed to sell your tool like $500 per month. Yeah, your tool is really young and it's really cranky." He was being honest with us, and that was true. And we still managed to sell it. And he said, like, if you find like these early users, you can find many more. But we knew, like, in the, I don't know, we had like a real talk with my co-founder, and we were like, I kind of lost conviction, like, on this tool. So I think it was more like intuition, but intuition like based on a lot of interviews, speaking to hundreds of users, and we didn't see ourselves like continuing in this direction. So So yeah, I know it's not like straightforward answers, but reality is at early stage it's always messy. So I think the most important thing is how much conviction as a founder you have in your idea, because everybody is going to say no, you're always going to be rejected. And we thought, yeah, we were building for a niche, and this niche was too small for the ambitions we had as a VC-backed company. So yeah.
Interesting. And, you've been in the growth role for so many years. And, we have a lot of listeners who are looking at how to grow the company. So, what are the top marketing skills which you need in order to master growth, especially in the, early stage startup?
Yeah, I think a lot of founders that, around like seed or before product market fit, I see a lot of founders like focusing on like, should I do SEO, should I do like paid advertising, etc., and asking me who should I hire. I think at this stage, like pre-product market fit, like it's not clear who your persona is, it's not clear what your messaging is, it's not clear what channel will work. So you need to have a generalist person who can like try like and iterate on a lot of like different channels. So I think it's like basic like project management skills and also a hustler attitude. So I'd say like pre-PMF, you shouldn't hire someone too senior or too specialized. Or if you do so, this person should know that they are going to do like really scrappy thing. Like a lot of like calls, a lot of emailing, a lot of demos, a lot of like things that won't work until they found something that works. But after PMF, I'd say it really depends on like what your what the channel works, which channel works better. Sorry. Okay. So if it's paid, then like hire a performance marketer. If it's like content or SEO, hire someone else. But the thing is, I think they should be a generalist person first. And sometimes it's the CEO, it's one of the founder, and it's the case at Lago. I mean, I'm working on all these things, and honestly, I'm not a specialist in any of this field, but I can like test a lot of different things, and I can hire specialists to do this. And after PMF, I think you should have identified 2 or 3 channels that work very well, and hire specialists. Yeah, so there are not like specific tools. I think one other thing I resent about like the terms growth is like the growth hacker things. I think these don't really work. Like growth is about like being repeatable and being really like data driven and not about like hacking things or like scrapping things, etc. So yeah, and if you want a perfect and maybe just to finish, when the company is more mature, like after product market fit, I think you need some people who write very well. I often see like this like a bit overlooked. Like the copywriting is very important.
Right.
The data like aspect for sure, and also the design aspect. I think people are more sensitive to design now, so design plus copy is really important. And usually people focus on data, which is great, but yeah, the 2 are super important too. Because I've seen like a lot of, I remember even at Conto, sometimes we spend a lot of time on building like automated campaigns, and then we had to write the copy. And I remember I wrote like really like not really good copy because I had to do it in like 20 minutes. And I remember like thinking that's bad. I mean, because that's the first thing people are going to see. And I'm like, if I don't do it right, then all the work we've done before is going to be wasted. So yeah, content marketers are really, really important.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Especially copywriting is so important. It's important for the business development guys also, because we have to do so many cold calling, and that's something I'm relearning, especially in the new tech company that I'm working for. And I wanted to understand, especially when it looks at when should a CEO or a founder look at building a growth team? Something which he's never established before. Is it should we look at when he already has 10 people in the company, or he has a product market fit? When do you think is the right time to build a growth team?
I think it's post product market fit. I think so. There are like different convictions around it, but I think like it's like first product market fit. Unless your company is like a pure execution play, which for instance, which was the case at Contour, because like I mean it's banking, every business needs a bank, so it's not a pure like innovation play. We were not like creating a new like use case. It was something that existed but done better. In that case, sometimes if you have money, you can hire like a growth team a bit like ahead of product market fit because you think the product market fit is de-risked. But in most of the cases, what YC advise, and I think I quite agree, is hire a growth team like after product market fit, because it's the founders who should sell and who should really iterate on like the personas, on the messaging. It takes a lot of obsession to iterate on this, and I think it should be founder-led. So it doesn't mean, so for instance, at LIGO, we're a team of 10 right now, and we hired someone for go-to-market, but I work like on a daily basis with him, and we're quite obsessed, like both of us. But I don't like delegate the whole go-to-market to him, even if it's like brilliant. But like, I mean, I think about this like all day long, like all the time. So yeah, I think it should be founder-led.
Interesting. And suppose a startup already had a product market fit. What should a growth team do in the first 90 days? What should be the most important task that they should be able to do?
I think they should identify channels that work, and I think it's more the combination of a persona and a channel. So some personas would be more sensitive to paid, and others would be more sensitive to partnerships. So I remember in the early days of Contour, like one surprising persona that we found were like Uber drivers.
Interesting.
And the acquisition channel was through partnerships with like Uber and the equivalents. So yeah, it's a combination of persona and channel, and I think they should like audit everything, the history of the company in terms of acquisition. So I remember at Contour, I was like crunching like all the leads, like all the time, all the inbounds to see if there was a new segment that was emerging. So sometimes a new segment would be like 2 or 3 people who would have like the same characteristics. And I would try to see if it's something that can be amplified and is worth it or not. So that's how I think we found like Uber drivers, and we found like people in construction companies as well. So yeah, I think like before product market fit, we shouldn't document too much. But when there's product market fit, it's worth it to try to like have data points on what happened, to see what worked well, what didn't work well, and try to scale it. There you go.
Got it. And I've done a podcast, I've done other things also, but I'm always looking at different acquisition channels. But in your experience, what's been the best acquisition campaign that you've ever seen? Being the company I've been into, or any other company.
So I think, yeah, a great acquisition campaign is a campaign that like has a lot like gathers a lot of leads and is quite cheap. And the best ones I've seen were like very boring stuff actually. Like I think comparison tables work super well. We built a comparison like section on the website at Contour, and it worked well. I think it works well for a lot of B2B SaaS as well. Just takes a lot of time. Yeah, it's a mix of SEO, like building a lot of content and linking them well and that kind of thing. So it's not shiny, it's not like overnight success, but that's what works super well. And yeah, and it's on our to-do list at LIGO as well to build like a comparison section. So we're doing it on a weekly basis, but yeah. So no shiny stuff, but really like basic stuff. Summarize.
Got it. And when should SaaS companies look at expanding into new markets and moving into different products?
I think yeah, I think when you're already like market leader or top of mind in one market, maybe it's worth it to look at other markets. And also, I think a lot of companies are just opportunistic. Like they start like seeing demand from other countries or other products, and then they try to expand. So usually it's a lot bottoms up, what I've seen. Then you share a different story to the media for sure. You say like it was a whole strategy, but the real thing is usually you see a couple of requests from a new market or a new like product line, and you start like thinking about it and trying new things. Yeah.
Got it. And there's been a big movement of SaaS in the last 10 years. What do you think is the biggest factor of the SaaS growth in the last couple of years? And I'm sure it has accelerated, especially during the COVID times. But what do you think is the biggest factor of this growth?
I think like B2B SaaS like benefited from like the B2C trends. I think it's crazy how like my friends who are not in tech are using a lot of B2B SaaS, B2C software. Right. I don't know, like Spotify, Netflix, and all these kinds of products. So I think it really helped like B2B as well. I think there's also a trend around like productivity. I'm not saying it's great, but we're always trying to be more productive, and that helps us like building more productivity. I think so. Yeah. I think the two trends are these ones. And I've seen a lot of people like wanting to go to tech as well, because it's been like kind of glorified in the media, even if there's a downturn now. I've seen a lot of like talent flocking to tech, so that also like contributed to like software being seen as a great thing. And I think 10 years ago software was so boring.
Yeah, true. Yeah, absolutely. And you've been kind enough to introduce me to Pierre from Clap, and before the call we did mention about it. You've been an angel investor in a few startups, especially Clap, and you're also an LP at Orange Fund. So what is your thesis when you look into investing into other startups?
Yeah, I've invested in a dozen of startups. I started 9 years ago. I think I try to invest in when I can help. So usually that isn't really good for diversification, but that means like investing in B2B SaaS and fintech. But I think I don't have a lot of time and I want to be helpful. I think I wouldn't be happy if I just investing and not trying to help or build a relationship with the founder. So the easiest way to do it is when I know the industry.
Right.
So yeah, it's really like around B2B SaaS and fintech. And sometimes there are like exceptions when I meet like exceptional founders, but usually it's like close friends who are like amazing and I would like whatever they do. So yeah, but usually like B2B SaaS and fintech.
Interesting. And you had written another article on Sifted, which was about Web 2 and Web 3, where you mentioned that there's not a big market for crypto, but you can learn a lot from the hiring tactics and how they market it. So what was your entire learning when you're trying to build something in Web 3?
Yeah, I think I didn't write like that there wasn't like a big market in crypto. I think crypto can be super big. The story is when we pivoted, we explored different ideas, and one of them was around Web3, whatever that means. So I told my co-founder, listen, we don't know a thing about Web3 except that you bought one Bitcoin, I have one, and that kind of thing. So not even one, like some cryptos. Right. So I told him, let's explore it. I'm trying to join different DAOs. I will try to be an active member. I will like really explore the market, but immerse myself and see if there's an opportunity for us. So yeah, and I think I'm not a crypto enthusiast. That was one of the conclusions. I think I need to see like use cases.
Yeah.
And I think it's too early in the cycle to see a lot of use cases, but I've seen like super interesting use cases in fintech, especially for populations that are underbanked, which really resonates with my first experience in Africa.
Right.
So I've seen like exciting companies using stable coins for like international remittances, like Shipper Cash, for instance, and there are a lot of them. This is one use case that really resonates with me. And for the other ones, I wasn't sure if it was a use case. I've seen a lot of people really enthusiastic about like everything being decentralized and like permissionless and that kind of things. But it's not really the case yet. I mean, if I can take an example about like bounties in DAOs. So the concept is when you contribute to the DAO, you get a token. I'm really oversimplifying it, but that's one of the like thing you can do with tokens. But the point is, there's someone like a person who's going to decide like which task like gives how many tokens, for instance. And one person is going to say, yes, you've done the task, or you haven't done the task well. So it's kind of like decentralized, or like everybody's an owner, but there's still a lot of like human intervention, which is normal because it's early in the cycle.
Right.
But yeah, I've seen a lot of gaps, and once again, it's not I don't want to be critical about it. I think it's really early in the cycle, and every innovation has its own cycle. But I've seen a lot of gap between the ideology and the reality of what it is right now in the DAOs, and so I didn't have enough internal conviction to go all in cryptos. But I've seen it. I wanted to believe in it because I've seen like so many smart people like being super enthusiastic and going like leaving like great jobs to go into Web3. Right. So that was really like exciting to see. And I'm still wondering, am I too, I don't know, too down to earth, to Web2, to boomer, to go to crypto. So yeah, that was my experience.
Interesting. And the lot of really code startups which are coming out of Europe. What are your thoughts on the French startup ecosystem? Where do you think do you think a lot of unicorns could come out of the France startup ecosystem?
I've seen, yeah, there are a lot of like startups from France. I think France is on fire, and I've seen there are a lot of like people who left France and who built like amazing companies as well. Global companies like there's Front from Mathilde Paulin, Algolia, Hugging Face. Like all these companies are amazing and known like worldwide and built by French people. So that's really inspiring for the French ecosystem. So I think it really matured in 10 years.
Right.
But what I'm also seeing, and maybe we're an example of it, is that a lot of French people actually leave France. So they end up, maybe it's going to change because of COVID, but a lot of people end up like live in the US. So yeah, I mean, like Nicolas from Algolia lives in the US now, Mathilde lives in the US, like Clément from Hugging Face as well. So yeah, maybe it's going to change, but yeah. So amazing entrepreneurs, a lot of them like end up like living in the US, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I've seen that with the Indian startup ecosystem as well. You're such a big market. They want to capture the biggest market, and then
yeah. But in India, it's a big market already. Maybe that's different, but
yeah, interesting. And I quickly want to do the top 3. What's your favorite business book?
I think so. I love a lot of books, but the one that resonated the most with the early stage phase was The Messy Middle by Scott Belsky.
Yeah.
So I had some notes and I shared it with my teams and it was really interesting to have perspective as well.
Got it. We'll put that in the show notes. And, so you could go back in time when you started Lago, what is the one thing you would have focused on or done anything differently?
I think we thought about it a lot. Like today, we think we should have started with our current product. So we open source billing API for B2B SaaS. And we thought about like, maybe it was our journey to go to the first product and to switch to the second one. But if I had to do it again, I'd go like directly to the second product. And so what happened with the first product is we built the product we wanted ourselves at Conto. So the no-code data tool for growth teams. But we didn't think about like the persona that we were at Conto, like the growth team, like really data-driven with engineers embedded in the team. Is this a big market or not? So we didn't really think this through. And so on one side, I think you can't think everything through. The best thing is like just to launch as soon as you can and to see how the market responds to it. But yeah, in retrospective, maybe I should have thought about it. And I think also we thought we could change the market, like making like growth teams much more data driven, like empowering the growth team to be like data engineers. But I think you can't really fight like the market trend. So the market trend is data is managed by the data engineers in the tech team. That's how it works right now. Maybe I can change it, but it's really hard to change it. So I will care more about like the market trends and the waves, more than like focusing on like one thing that we really experimented. Yeah, I think one of the big learning to summarize is, I don't know where I read it, but I can find the article. It's about like a great team on a bad wave will fail.
Yeah.
But like an average team on the right wave will succeed. So it seems simple, but it's quite hard to execute on that. But that's something I have in mind all the time. Like, is there like a great wave I can ride? Is the timing right or not? So some companies like create their own timing, and that's really like exceptional. And I think, for instance, Front from Medsteel, they created their own timing, and that's amazing. So they're like exceptional, but it's much easier if you identify a trend and then you write it.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're quite obsessed by this.
Interesting. And do you have any favorite online tools? Example, Gmail, Slack, Zoom, Notion?
Yeah, I go with, so I discovered, I think it's Eleanor from Sifted. She introduced me to a wellness tool called Open. Okay. So it's about like yoga, meditation. It was born in California. So for some reasons, like Californians do like wellness apps like so well. I don't know why we can't reproduce this in Europe, but they do it like better.
Yeah.
So I really recommend it. But like thousands of like wellness apps, but this one is really like stunning.
It's called Open App, is it?
Yeah.
Open as app. Okay.
Open, yeah, with hyphens between them. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
I can send it to you.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, we'll put that in the show notes. And what is the best way people can reach out to you and know more about Lago?
Sure. So we have the website. It's getlago.com, and I'm available on LinkedIn, Twitter. So you can reach out to me. Just DM me. My DMs are open. And I'm happy to talk about like any aspect of like founding a company, angel investing, doing product-led growth, billing and pricing for sure. So yeah, happy to talk.
Got it. We'll put that in the show notes. And thank you so much for taking our time and speaking to us. I really enjoyed my conversation.
Thank you for having me.